Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast or media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, LuckyEevee, Mathmachine, the Shark, and Jordan. Today is our 66th episode, and we're discussing the 1996 The Mask, the animated series episode, They Came From Within. So, let's get things started. Yep, we got to start it that way.
Oh, yeah.
As pretty much everyone who's listening to this podcast knows, Jim Carrey's first, 3 or 4 movies were monster hits. And they all came out around 1994. And they all were huge box office smashes. And of course, I am talking about Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. And all 3 movies, those being your first 3 big major motion picture movies and them all being such big hits, he instantly became one of the biggest comedy stars in the 90s and really of any time period.
All that thanks to the fact he made funny faces for the most part.
Yep,
he did make faces for years, practicing the art. It was amazing. Shout out to you, Carrey, if you're listening to this.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah, and those 3 cartoons weren't popular enough to. I mean, those 3 movies were popular enough to get their own cartoons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And out of the 3 of them, The Mask is easily the best one. Putting this around the table right now, out of the 3 cartoons based on the Jim Carrey movies that came out shortly after their success, The Mask is the best one, and it's the one that is the most well known because it lasted for 3 seasons, and it really has a great tone to it. This is probably the most perfect continuation of a movie to a cartoon that you want to get. Now,
and they had a good crossover.
That too. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But But first,
I don't even see that movie, honestly.
Yeah, you should. The Mask is a really classic movie. It holds up really well. Like the effects are still really good. There's a couple of dodgy CGI here and there, but for the most part, for 1994, this looks great.
Yeah,
yep.
Honestly,
even better than the sequel that we won't talk about.
Please, we do not talk. Yeah. We do not speak its name. We do not put that evil in this house.
No. Oh man, but yeah,
not at all.
I can see why.
No. But yeah, since Jim Carrey was not going to return for a cartoon, they actually got Rob Paulsen. Of course, he was probably best known for Yakko and Animaniacs, and of course, Pinky on Pinky and the Brain, and hundreds of other cartoons. I mean, we don't have to go through his entire.
And also Raphael for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the main mouse from Biker Mice from Mars, which we did recently.
That too, which we also discussed earlier. That's right. But he does a really fantastic job because not only does he manage to do the complete off-the-wall wackiness of The Mask, which, granted, is a hard thing to do, he also really makes Stanley Ipkiss feel like a unique character in his own right. He really makes him feel like, like there's a difference between Stanley and The Mask, whereas a lesser voice actor would just have, Stanley act like a complete goofball like The Mask. But it's like he actually looked at the movie and he decided to actually copy it while still putting his own spin on the character. That really works out for the best, He does the more subdued nature of Stanley really well. And I think that, too, is kind of like the benefit of it. It's kind of like what Michael Keaton once said about being Batman. Anyone can play Batman, but it's how you play Bruce Wayne that matters. And it is. It's about like the alter ego as well, how you can portray them as well. And Rob Paulsen does an absolutely fantastic job with it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Real quick, before we get into the show itself, for people that have seen the movie that haven't seen this animated series, we're probably going to mention a couple things that are going to confuse you. So I just want to get that out of the way right quick. You're able to actually put the mask on during the day. That was one of the rules that you couldn't do in the movie, so they changed that. Ipkiss kind of realizes what he's doing as the mask, or at least he has enough awareness that when it's off, he knows what happened. And the Mask is a pseudo superhero in this universe.
Yeah, the original comics, however.
Oh no!
It depends on the
He's
source.
a psychotic murderer in that one. And
hell yeah! You thought the Joker was bad? You ain't seen shit, buddy.
And also another fun fact: he's not called the Mask in the comic book. His name is Big Head. Believe it or not.
Or the Green Medic.
No relation with Ed Big Head, unfortunately.
I was
but...
about to mention Rocco.
Yeah, but no,
God.
the
Yeah,
mask
he's
is actually
also-
named Big Head in the comics.
To think this would be the same guy who would go toe to toe with Lobo of all people.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is
the
how
mask.
bizarre.
Yeah, the mask in the comic is very, 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 very violent and not for kids. If you have a kid who likes the Mask cartoon, the Mask movie, do not get them the comic book because
They will
will have
shank you in your
nightmares.
sleep if you do.
They will have nightmares. But, of course, now let's talk about the episode itself. It begins with the theme song, which is a cover of the Mask theme song. And one thing that's interesting to note, it's a good song in that, but I noticed for season 3, they actually changed the tune of it compared to the first 2 seasons. The first 2 sounded more like, what's it called? Hey Patushko, I think that's what it's called, the Mask theme song. But this one, they tweaked it, maybe because they had problems with copyright or that, to where it doesn't sound like it. And it's because of that reason that Paulson's vocals are a little off, because they clearly used it for the original audio track, or it might even be this is a different take of the song, because it is very, very off compared to the original theme song for the first 2 seasons. I don't know why they did. Information on this show, production-wise, is kind of scarce, but it is a very, very strange change, nonetheless.
I've noticed that cartoons from the 90s had this weird habit of doing that, where they would re-record the theme song for the show after a couple of seasons. I'm guessing it's because test audiences or something.
Yeah, either that or the only other guess is copyright.
They get better quality equipment, and their old song is doesn't have.
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely can see that. So, yep, the episode itself begins with Stanley at a comic book convention. Stanley spends almost all of his money on a copy of. Yeah. He spends all of his money on a copy of Galactic Avenger issue 1 in mint condition. But then we get to see Lieutenant Calloway bump into Stanley and take his comic book. And the next interesting here, and of course, Lieutenant Calloway's sidekick Doyle shows up and he holds the comic, reminiscing how much he loved the series when he was a kid. Doyle is voiced by Jim Cummings, who of course is a legend in his own right. I mean, the guy has been voicing Winnie the Pooh and pretty much all of Sterling Holloway's characters since the late 80s.
Both Jims.
Yeah,
Indeed.
that too. Very interesting. Yeah. One thing that's interesting about this is a lot of movie-based cartoons would change the designs of the characters so they wouldn't look like the actors. And the reason for that is because of royalties. Like, if you made a cartoon, say, for example, of The Mummy, and you have Imhotep look like, the actor who played him, the actor could have royalties. And that's why Imhotep was purple in the show, believe it or not. But for this one,
that's interesting.
But it's interesting here is that Doyle looks exactly like his movie counterpart. And Lieutenant Calloway looks exactly like the Lieutenant Calloway from the comic series. I wonder if that was an intentional design choice there. They based him on, Calloway from the comic.
All the designs into one, I guess.
Yeah, you take aspects from a lot of things and you mash it together. Honestly, it's pretty unique. Also, on Stanley Ipkiss, using all his life savings to buy one freaking out-of-date comic book that's limited edition.
And what is this? 2020?
Artist commissioners can honestly relate.
They can relate.
To that one.
Relate to that.
I can relate to
Good point on that.
I can relate to him so hard. Oh man.
I mean, comparison from the cartoons of Calloway and the real life, the only difference is the personalities. I mean, a little tweak in the cartoon because he's obsessed with trying to get his hands on the mask and trying to figure out who is this mask.
After the events of the movie, you can kind of see why, because this is actually a sequel to the movie. It's not like an alternate continuity, which is very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he just keeps thinking, oh, I'm going to find the mask. Everyone, even Doyle, he kind of acts like how every sidekick character, like Pumbaa, is dumb, but they're smart in a way. He kind of points out every little detail, like, oh wait, Calloway, here's Stanley right here, and the mask is on the other side of town. What are they the same one? Doyle gets it. Calloway's like, Doyle, you crazy? There's no way the mask and Stanley are the same person. They just throw that right there. I didn't get it.
That is interesting. I did not consider that.
Does the character that was supposed to get killed in the movie show up in the cartoon?
Yeah. We'll talk about that when she shows up. But yes, that does
Alright.
happen, and we definitely will talk about that. So what
Interesting.
happens for now is Calloway gives Stanley the comic book back, but someone else runs up and steals it. Calloway and Doyle give chase, while Stanley is forced to put on the mask to get it back. The two chase the thief in their car, but then the mask shows up dressed as a Roman legionnaire and riding in a chariot. It's a really hilarious gag where the horse of the masked chariot, it turns out it's a little girl on a rocking horse. Which again, there are so many like little visual gags in the show. You really have to watch out for it, and it is really, really hilarious. So the mask stops by Calloway and he gives him a toga-themed wedgie, which is a running gag. It was like a one-off joke in the movie, and they decided to make it a whole thing. But I guess it works with the kids in that. He then chases after the thief. The mask gets a hold of the comic book, but he accidentally throws it in the air and causes it to fly away, which causes him to run after it. Then, as Jordan was saying, because Calloway is so obsessed with the mask, he chases after the mask because he's reasoning that he was somehow collided with the thief in a way. The mask finds a comic book in an alleyway before he lets out a hilarious wild take as Calloway and Doyle come closer. And he gets an ingenious idea because the mask basically runs on cartoon logic. He jumps inside the comic book while Calloway and Doyle search the alleyway, and they don't find him. And of course, the mask was already a comic book character to begin with, so fun little touch to its roots, although comic mask would have definitely reacted very differently to these characters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely. He would not have played with them. Let's put it that way. It would have been much more violent. But the mask is inside the comic book, and it's here he runs into the three villains of the book, the Dark Star Trio. They consist of War Machine, who is not the Marvel villain. He's also voiced by Jim Cummings. Riptide, who basically is, I guess, I'm trying to think of a good comparison, but he would be like Hydro Man or something like that. And the reason we're discussing this episode, Dragon Lady, who is a woman who can transform into a dragoness. All of these characters.
Straightforward name there, but we'll take it.
Nah, unfortunately. Could have had a more, unique name, but I guess it works because they're trying to ape Marvel Comics, especially with the designs with these guys. Like Dragon Lady is a mixture of at least 3 or 4 different, X-Men characters, especially with like the leotard and that.
Yeah,
and
let's be fair. Some superhero names weren't that creative back then. Like
Indeed.
Superman or Batman is just what they are literally. So Dragon Lady.
Exactly.
Fitting.
Yeah.
I
mean, tell you how much of the day Dragon Lady is. She's got the long hair and the flat top.
Yeah.
Indeed. We also got stuff like freaking let's see, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man, Paste Pot Pete, Blue Ear, Fruit Boy, the
we could be here
Wizard.
all day if we want to talk about weird as hell superheroes, especially for that time period. It definitely, there was a lot of them. But Dragon Lady's design, because we see a lot of her dragoness form in this show, which is a very good plus in my book. They're the same color as her skin with black stripes all over. And I like the idea that her white hair is still there, but it's more wild in her form. And of course, she has a bottom-heavy design, which another big plus in my book. I believe her voice actress is none other than the great Kat Susi, who, again, a voice actress who has been in hundreds of things. A resume, a mile long in that.
Oh, yeah.
And she has a Russian accent, like
that too.
Russian accent.
Yep. She was a Dragon Lady related to Ludmilla. We can only speculate.
Or Lady Daisy or whatever.
That too. But you can tell that the animators were having a lot of fun with this because when the comic book villains speak, word balloons appear as they talk, which is a really fun touch. And, of course, they basically make their comic book speech about how they will get revenge on the Galactic Avenger for imprisoning them on the prison planet of Alderaan, even though it was not destroyed by Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader. Yeah. But then, of course, we cut to the mask, who's basically watching this while eating popcorn. He says that, you're boring and your dialogue is weak. Then he hits on Dragon Lady, and another running gag, which, especially for the 90s, they kept the whole thing with the mask being a very... How should you put it this way? Very horny guy. Let's do it that way.
I mean, Johnny Bravo aired around the time too.
Yeah.
I would also like to take this moment to say that the mask probably very well represents us.
In a way, he very
Did,
much
yeah.
does because
Everyone
there's a
else is
running gag
born,
in this
but
episode.
we got this lady right here who can transform into a
Sure.
dragon.
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Sure.
Pardon, mama.
He
Yeah,
never
sure.
seems only care when she's a dragon, but knowing she can turn into a dragon doesn't stop him at the same time.
Exactly.
Oh, hell yeah.
The mask
Absolutely
speaks
is.
for us.
I mean,
the
you
mask
know,
speaks
the
for us.
mask, when Stanley puts it on, he said that every time someone puts the mask on, it brings out the real person that someone wears it. Like, in other episodes, we've seen this girl that Stanley was going on a date with. She became a hot woman who had a huge lust for Stanley, or the psychiatrist who was so deep because he had to deal with Stanley's problem that he came up. It's just different personalities that it's deep inside of us. I mean, if someone wore, they'd be, I don't know, it's whatever personality that you had inside that you just can't let it out. With Stanley,
Exactly.
he says,
Yeah, that's the main idea, basically.
Yeah.
yes,
I think I know where Persona 5 got its inspiration from with that
pretty
logic.
much.
I can see
So
it. I
that's
can
what
see
I
it.
see. I guess that's why I see when Stanley is the only one who can handle the mask, and he can handle this personality of himself whenever he puts it on. And he's like, okay, I am the only one who can handle this mask. No one can because they don't understand its power. Only he can.
Indeed.
That is a very good point there. But of course, the mask hits on Dragon Lady, as we said, and she is not amused by this. She just tosses him over the horizon. She then turns into a dragon form and breathes fire on the mask's face. Riptide attempts to attack the mask, but the mask just uses him to wash his face. And then the mask, again, this show is really, really funny and really copied the humor of the movie down to a T while also doing its own thing. The mask disappears and he reappears a minute later. I got these X-ray goggles from the back of the comic book. War Machine uses a laser that turns the mask into a skeleton, and he says, "Wow, you can see the bones!" But then he turns to Dragon Lady and he goes, "And that's not all." And of course, again,
oh my gosh.
yeah.
That was
The mask is
no,
definitely
no.
very, yeah, exactly.
Oh, gosh.
But of course, Dragon Lady comes up with the idea that the mask could somehow bring them to the Galactic Avenger. The mask refuses, but then he notices he said that in a word bubble and rides it off into the sky. There's a really funny gag here. Again, you can tell they had a lot of fun of playing with like the logic of it, where War Machine begins talking, but the mask begins scrambling up the letters in his word balloon, so he just says gibberish.
Yeah, really plays here.
Classic, yeah.
Yeah,
Of
I
course-
do that too.
Yeah. It's just
That no matter what.
yeah. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the mask is pretty much tired of this. He leaves the comic book and tries to walk away, only to find that the Dark Star Trio is in front of him. The mask does a hilarious Tex Avery-style wild take as it cuts to commercial. But then we get something that really made me laugh hard. And I imagine when you watch it like as a kid with the actual commercials, it probably made it 10 times funnier. When he comes back from commercial, he's not doing the wild take because the Dark Star Trio are in front of him. He's screaming because there's a monkey movie marathon going on in a movie theater right across the street. And he just runs past the villains to go watch his monkey movies. It's something that's just like perfectly set up.
Turns off.
Exactly, yeah. A Monkey Mania movie marathon. And then, of course,
Oh man, this guy knows his priorities. This guy knows his priorities.
definitely.
Oh man.
But
And I'm ashamed that they go to the real world so fast because you had the mask already altering the comic book. You could have done so much more with this character, but
Yeah, you
I
could
guess
have.
so.
Yeah,
But
probably
we still
that's
get a
pretty
lot
cool.
of them. We still get a lot of them, though. I will give them that. They actually did give them a lot of screen time, which is a lot of fun. The Dark Star Trio basically wonder where they are, and they believe they're on the Galactic Avengers planet. They decide to interrogate the mask to find him. The mask is busy in the movie theater watching the movie, which apparently just consists of chimps jumping up and down over and over again. The Dark Star Trio show up at the theater and they walk in front of the screen. The mask thinks it's a 3D movie and puts on 3D
that's
glasses.
a joke.
Yeah, and a really fun bit of animation. The next scene when it cuts back to the Dark Star Trio, they're in the blue and red of the old 3D glasses, which again a really nice touch. They didn't have to do that, but to show from the mask perspective, but they did. And another line that really made me laugh hard. He said, "You're not the monkeys from the movie. You're those stupid villains from the comic book." like he only just realized now that it's them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Priorities.
It's just But then, of course, Mask dresses up as a cowboy, and he holds up 2 giant pencils preparing to rub them out. I guess he learned from Doodle Bob in that way.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. And Rubber Man from freaking Looney Tunes, or was
That
Doodle
too.
Bob his name?
Yeah, that too. But of course,
Yeah.
War Machine basically crushes Mask, who gets right back up again. He hits on Dragon Lady yet again as she turns her head into that of a dragoness form, while the rest of her body is still the humanoid form. She sets the mask on fire once again, and the funny gag is the mask flies out screaming, "Skin!" like that. That is a really, really cute,
Wait,
way to
what?
have his
What did?
catchphrase.
All right, that cut out a little bit.
Oh, he says, "Smoking," his catchphrase. That really, really is
Yeah.
classic.
We got
Right.
Yeah. So,
clever use of her abilities because she can change individual parts of her body into a dragon's.
yeah.
Indeed.
That definitely is a really good moment. But the mask lands in a water fountain before War Machine heats up the water. The mask instantly bobs right back up in a bathing suit, relaxing in the hot tub. Riptide attempts to absorb the mask before he just walks right out in a scuba outfit. Dragon Lady, and then of course, Dragon Lady really gets the mask upset by calling him insignificant. And the mask is so offended by it that we get probably what is the keystone of the episode that really is probably why they did this in the first place. The mask just dresses up as other superheroes. He shows up as Professor Latex, haha, funny because the X-Men cartoon was still on the air at the
around
time.
the same time.
Yeah. Also
Yeah.
funny because X-Men.
Yep, that's he demands that they get back into their comic book, and it's here where the real episode begins, where it's not really so much a story as it's just let's have the mask make fun of all different superheroes because he shows up as Biclops, a parody of Cyclops with his powers of teen angst, and he uses laser beams on War Machine only for it to bounce off his metal and burn him. And then he shows up as Toolverine, and he uses a drill to try and remove War Machine's arm, but
It works.
Yep, it works, but he's punched into a phone booth, and then he comes out dressed up as Super Salad Man.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had a lot of fun with this.
They
And
joke right there,
especially,
yeah.
it's such bad puns, but it does work
It
in a way.
works.
It really,
It
really does.
absolutely works.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then
Okay.
he,
How many superhero parodies do you want us to draw? The writers.
Yes.
yes, that is a perfect summary of this. Of
Yeah.
this whole entire episode, really. It really, really is. But of course, the mask flies over to Peggy as then she starts acting like a parody of Lois Lane. And it's here where we get the interesting part where Peggy the reporter was actually going to die in the mask. There was a deleted scene where Tyrell kills her, basically shoving her in a printing press, and bloody newspapers come out reporting on her death. And
Yikes.
yeah, that almost happened. It was cut out apparently because it was too violent. And the fact that they kept this as a deleted scene meant that she could be in the animated series. And they actually referenced this because she says something like, "I sold you out to the mobsters one time and you hate me forever because of it." And it's very interesting that, if they had kept that deleted scene, who would they have had as the masked friend in that way?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's true, but I mean, Peggy did kind of help out in some ways in the series. She's always there when.
Oh, no. In the
It's
series,
the-
she definitely is. Yeah. But it's like in the movie, she just like instantly betrays him in that,
Well, I mean, if you're in her shoes, she's just say like it's hard to get a place in this dump of a city, so you gotta do what you gotta do. But she felt bad when she saw how they were going to kill him, and she's like, "You said you were gonna kill him." I lied. She kind of has some feelings for Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's-
it is
it's
good
pretty-
that the animated series followed on that.
Yeah, it's pretty good when a character has a moral compass, especially on things that go too far.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely,
That's pretty
definitely,
good.
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, the mask then attempts to drink Riptide, but the water-based supervillain basically bursts out of the mask's body. Not as violent as it sounds, although if it was comic book mask, it would have been very different. Yep. War Machine then attempts to crush Mask under concrete, but it's then where we cut back to the comic book convention where Calloway is waiting for the mask to return, while Doyle is excitedly talking to cosplayers dressed as other superheroes. And this is before the modern day, Comic Cons and that. They were there, but they were not as much of a big thing as they would become a couple of decades later. So it's interesting seeing it represented in a cartoon like this.
Yeah.
Yep. But then, of course, Calloway gets the idea to go undercover because of course, there's a bunch of people in costumes. They could do that and potentially get the mask. We then cut back to the mask, who shows up as a parody of Spider-Man, of all characters, Spider-Heiny, and
Yep.
Yep, the mask definitely would do that. He then traps Lady Webb in a spinneret before being grabbed by War Machine. War Machine asks the mask where the Galactic Avenger is before the mask tries telling him that neither the Galactic Avenger nor the Dark Star Trio actually exist. They're just characters in a comic book. Of course, he doesn't listen. War Machine just throws the mask over into the horizon yet again, and he senses something. And it's then when we cut to Lieutenant Calloway, now dressed as the Galactic Avenger. There's a really funny gag here where a bunch of nerds basically swarm him and are asking him like hundreds of questions about the characters, which is a really, really good moment. You know,
it's a funny bit. Like he's
Yeah,
trying
it
to do
definitely-
his
definitely
job, but nerds won't let him.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
The geeks won't let him. What the man,
Exactly.
cook?
Yeah, it's just
Oh, if only Omer was there to punch some nerds.
oh, if only. Tch. But yep, the Dark Star Trio storm in, and then they begin attacking Calloway, thinking that he is the Galactic Avenger. The mask then returns yet again, this time dressed as the Green Surfer, Teehee, as he wonders where the villains are. And I like how the mask is just indignant that they didn't wait up for him, that they instead went to attack Calloway. And he's so offended by it, you know? It really does, you know.
I'm
it's
the
like-
protagonist.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the mask does the right thing, not because it's the right thing to do, but because of his massive, massive ego. And it really, really, again, they could have made the mask like a generic superhero or stuff like that, but they didn't. They actually gave him more of like a more true to the character, like the movie version, while still making him more heroic than that one. And it really does work out.
Yep.
Yep. So then we cut back to the comic book convention as War Machine has Calloway in his grasp, while all the nerds are cheering for Calloway, including Doyle. Doyle then attempts to put handcuffs on the other two, but Riptide turns into liquid, and Dragon Lady just turns into a Dragoness form and flies away. The Dark Star Trio just storm off with Calloway as the mask shows up, and at this point, you can tell that the mask really is at his breaking point. He tries to tell them that Calloway is just an ordinary policeman, but the Dark Star Trio said, yes, a policeman who imprisoned us on the prison planet Alderaan. Because, of course, they're still like comic book characters.
Yep.
And Calloway being the
was easier to break about being fake.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, Calloway being the paranoid man that he is, he thinks that the mask is in league with the Dark Star Trio.
Yeah.
Yep. Riptide attempts to drown the mask as the mask finally reaches his breaking point. He attempts to beat Riptide the only way he knows how, by using powdered gelatin mix to turn him into a statue. In a cute reference that I don't know if it was intentional or not, the statue looks a little bit like Gumby. And if that was intentional, that's a pretty cute little reference they made there.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can see it.
Yeah. But,
probably not intentional, but it's honestly pretty cute.
Yeah, very
nonetheless.
similar.
It's a very
I would say
definitely
it was
fitting one.
potential if they used lime jello, but they used
Yeah,
cherry.
that would have been perfect. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would have made more sense. But even if it wasn't intentional, I'd still like to think it is. But of course, it turns out Doyle, having been obsessed with the Galactic Adventure, he knows everything about them. And he says that, oh yeah, like they didn't try to defeat Riptide with gelatin in issue 703. And of course, it turns out it didn't work. And Doyle, being the massive comic book nerd that he is, he knows all about how to defeat the villains. It turns out that Riptide can only be defeated with quick drawing cement. I just love how the mask just instantly just picks him up and just drags him over to a cement mixer. Like, he's just so done with it. It is hilarious, you know?
Yeah, he's just like, ah!
He wants to make sure it's over already.
Yeah, exactly. And
These
a
guys
fun
got
gag.
more screen time than me. This can't be allowed.
Exactly. And in a fun gag, the mask then writes his name in the cement and has a group of fans and photographers surrounding him. Kind of like the scene in the first movie where he wins like an Oscar on that for when he pretends to die.
Yeah.
That's a cute little callback there. Dragon Lady then takes Calloway in the air while Doyle remembers how to defeat War Machine. It turns out War Machine can only be defeated by Quasar, the Galactic Avenger's pet dog, which causes the mask to return home and get Milo, Stanley's dog. And it's here where he puts the mask on Milo, and like what happened in the movie, Milo turns into a masked version of the dog. Thankfully, it is nowhere near as horrific or off-putting as the mask version of the dog in Son of the Mask, which
It comes
again,
close,
we do not
but
speak its
honestly, I prefer that over that one.
name. Yeah. But it's here where we get to see more of Dragon Lady, and she's shown to actually be able to talk as a dragoness, which again, a huge plus in my opinion. That
Oh, yeah.
she's not just doing like animalistic roaring and that; she can actually speak in her dragoness form. She drops Callaway.
They do that where they are constantly doing every cows they do as a dragon.
Exactly. That is always a benefit in my opinion. Whenever they do that with like a cartoon character that or a dragoness rather, that is always a big plus in my book. Definitely going to help out the score here. But basically, she has had enough of Callaway. Decides to drop him to his doom. But Milo saves him and buries him up to his neck. Milo then flies towards Doyle, who tries to use the doggy door. Milo enters a panel in War Machine's back, which somehow causes the robot to just fall to pieces instantly in a pretty funny gag.
Yeah.
And
honestly, it kind of reminds me of Astro Boy, which don't know if it was intentional as well, but it's pretty neat.
And the design would have been a little different if it was, but I can kind of see it.
Yeah,
I definitely can see
it's
it.
like it references a scene from the intro where Astro Boy flies to the mouth of a giant alien robot or something like that, and he just like goes inside and like topples it from the inside a little bit.
Yep. I can kind of see that. But yep, Dragon Lady then lands as she claims that she can defeat all of them all by herself. There's a little bit of an animation error here, just one that I kind of noticed because I guess I have the eye for this. Dragon Lady speaks, but her mouth doesn't move for a couple of seconds. I don't know if they meant to like have it be like a view of her from behind, but they actually did it from the front or something like that. But it's kind of weird. But again, it doesn't really affect it that much. But of course, it turns out that the Stanley is worried about what happened to his comic book. He's like, "Oh no, there's a crease and the staples bent." When of course there's a lot more pressing things to go over, Stanley. But he gets the mask from Milo, and then he becomes the mask again, of course. And he asks Doyle how to defeat Dragon Lady, and he dresses up Doyle as like a Greek oracle. And there's a funny gag in the background where Callaway tries to take on Dragon Lady, but she just breathes fire on him. And in the background, you see Callaway running and screaming while on fire. It doesn't sound that funny, but it's something about the way it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see why.
It's really funny. But it turns out that Doyle runs through his various options, and the mask just gets bored with this. In a funny gag, he pulls out a remote control and just fast forwards through Doyle's dialogue. And it turns out that, according to Doyle, what can defeat her is space cheese. So the mask becomes an alpinist, and he brings back down a chunk of moon rock that lands on the ground. Unfortunately, it does not defeat her. It makes all three villains return even stronger than ever.
Oh boy.
Yep, and of course both Mask
and is Doyle.
Yep, and of course
Nice
it put.
job, Doyle.
Yep, he's ruined everything. Not as bad as
damn it,
Louis,
Doyle.
not as bad as Louis from Pikmin, but he still ruined everything.
Oh boy, yeah, had to go there.
But of course, the three villains, of course, they're now stronger than ever, and even the Mask doesn't know how to defeat them. Before he comes up with a solution, he says that Stanley's going to hate him for this, but his solution is he just tears up the comic book, which causes the villains to basically just freeze and scream before they disappear into nothing because, of course, the book they were from no longer exists.
It honestly kind of reminds me of that one moment from The Amazing World of Gumball, where like Sarah finds this journal that pretty much impacts the world around him, and she basically writes her own fanfics. I
remember that.
Yeah, in one scene, it shows like an Neko looking Gumball as a female and a somewhat.
That was so better.
Yeah, that was meta. But it gets even better when, like, later they're like trying to stop the journal and evade the police, and like Darwin or Gumball tears out the page with the freaking male Darwin in it, and like the whole time, like Darwin's getting freaking destroyed. The female Gumball is like screaming with that like anime face with like the blank round sphere, blank round circles, and she's just like.
That's
and
also
like,
if you try
god! Like they tried crumpling it, and then they like shredded him, and then they like set him on fire. Oh my gosh! Like the whole time she's like, "Are you okay?" and then he gets burnt.
Oh yeah, I can kind of see that.
with Atom Heart Feather stand in Diamonds Unbreakable in JoJo.
I can kind of see that.
Oh,
Too. I
yeah.
definitely can see that one. Yeah, that
Oh, man.
comparison makes a little more sense to me. But yeah, what happens, of course, is that even though the mask defeated the villains, the comic book is no more, and Stanley pretty much lost his entire life savings. Which that's why you don't put all your life savings on one tangible object right there.
This is so deep at
Stanley is
me.
then sitting in his
Not gonna
apartment,
lie.
and yep, he's holding the scraps of paper and he's crying. Before then, he receives a letter. It turns out to be from Doyle, who sends him a copy of the Galactic Avenger issue he found in his mom's closet. And the episode ends with Stanley sitting down to read the comic before he opens it, and he sees, to his horror, that the comic book is now just the mask doing everything that he did in the episode because he altered reality. And of course, the mask breaks the fourth wall by saying, "Smokin'!" again, this time with a word bubble.
Yep.
And, yep, again, it's a really clever ending. It's a really funny one. And like I say, I think it would have made a little bit more sense if the mask was in the comic book the entire time. But again, it is still a really, really funny ending, and it works out pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
it
good, all
reminds
things
you that the
considered.
character is a comic book character in the start.
Definitely.
Yep.
It definitely could have been an intentional reference in a way. And like I say, that's the end of this episode. And The Mask, this was its third and final season. And The Mask actually had a proper finale. And it was a very, very unusual one because it was a crossover with Ace Ventura. What happened was that Dr. Pretorius, the main villain of the Mask cartoon, who's basically I guess you can call him a cyborg. He's voiced by the legendary Tim Curry, of course. So that's always a huge plus. He kidnaps Milo, Stanley's dog, and then Ace Ventura, pet detective, shows up to help solve the mystery. The Mask basically runs into him, and they get jealous and fight, but then they work together to defeat Dr. Pretorius and such. And what's interesting about this crossover is the Ace Ventura cartoon had a much more cartoony design. And
Ace
to see
Ventura had a
him
cartoon?
showing up in the same universe as the Mask, it is very, very unusual because the Mask all had very realistic human designs. The Mask himself notwithstanding. And to see this like wacky little cartoon guy is really, really weird. It'd be like if they had an episode of He-Man and then Popeye the Sailor showed up. It's like something that, it doesn't really fit. But at the same time,
Now you wanna watch it.
yeah. But no, it's a very, very fun episode. I definitely recommend it. It's very interesting that you have two guys basically imitating Jim Carrey, and the guy doing Ace Ventura also does a good job, but I feel like Rob Paulson does a slightly better one, and that he makes the Mask more of his own character rather than just do the guy from the movie again. And even though this was the final episode of The Mask, the Mask from this cartoon would show up in an episode of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective that came out after it. So technically, the final appearance of the Mask was in the Ace Ventura cartoon. And there it's weird because Stanley Ipkiss, and the Mask are the only realistically proportioned human beings in this otherwise cartoon world.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, The Mask, of course, the Mask cartoon is really, really funny. I highly recommend it. And it's a shame that, of course, the Mask franchise as a whole pretty much would be killed stone dead thanks to the aforementioned horrible, Son of the Mask. I mean, it's interesting that no one has tried anything with the Mask since then. There's been, I think, a couple of comic books and maybe like a children's book or two, but aside from that, absolutely nothing has been done with this franchise since 2004, 2005. And it's like, it's been 20 years. I mean, I don't want a reboot. I don't want a legacy sequel because more often than not, those are terrible. Even the ones with Jim Carrey. Hi, Dumb and Dumber 2. That was one of the worst sequels ever made.
That one was okay.
I thought it was pretty bad myself.
Wait, is that the one where they go to school, or is that the one that's 20 years later?
That's the one 20 years later.
Oh, never mind. That was trash.
Yeah, that one is terrible. That one is just really, really bad, and they got Jim Carrey back for that. And I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but it's interesting with why Son of the Mask was made in the first place. Jim Carrey said that he was going to do The Mask 2. He even said in an interview something like, "I'm getting paid $7 million to do The Mask Part 2. Then, after Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls underperformed, Jim Carrey publicly stated he will never do any sequels ever again. which of course now he negated on that because he did Dumb and Dumber 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was
he's
better.
open to it. For about 20 years, he was not going to do any sequels to any of his movies. But New Line Pictures, which did The Mask, they had to do something with the franchise in order to keep the rights to it. So that's how we got the nightmare that is Son of the Mask, and that is all we're going to talk about because it's bad. It is. I have a very high threshold for bad movies. Son of the Mask breaks me. I cannot sit through it. It is bad.
Thank goodness it doesn't have a dragoness or female dinosaur.
So we never have to talk about it ever. Thank goodness for that. But something we will talk about is our question of the episode, which is, what movie-based cartoons did you enjoy? Now, what this means is cartoons are like spin-offs of movies or continuations of movies and such like that. And I'm going to start. I have a really interesting answer for this because it is kind of a spin-off. It even had that in its direct-to-video first sequel. My answer is going to be Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, which is a really fantastic show.
God. Screw Disney for not putting that on Disney Plus. Fuck them.
I know. Double screw them for the Lightyear movie that is nothing like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. Basically, what it is it has a very interesting concept behind it in that this is the Buzz Lightyear cartoon in-universe of Toy Story. This is the in-universe cartoon that Andy probably watched as a kid, and he wanted to go out and buy all the Buzz Lightyear stuff because, well, it's a cartoon in that. And
growing up in the same universe as that movie.
Yeah, where the Toy Story characters basically show up in the intro, and then it zooms in on the television, and the episode itself begins on TV.
Nice try. Nice try, Lightyear.
I like how some intros have like alteration where Buzz crashes or doesn't quite make it to the TV and stuff like that.
that too. That's always funny. Or like Zurg shows up and fires like the little soft rubber balls at Buzz. It's always funny. Yeah, this show is really, really great. They didn't get Tim Allen back for the whole show, though they did get him for the pilot movie, and he did a great job there.
Yeah,
but
pilot
for
movie
the TV
was awesome.
Show, yeah, they got Patrick Warburton, who was an absolute legend. I mean, this guy was, of course, Kronk in Emperor's New Groove, Putty on Seinfeld, Joe from Family Guy, a lot of good stuff. And he does a fantastic, absolutely hilarious job as Buzz Lightyear. He really sells that whole, parody of like, space heroes and that. And even though it's like a parody, it also has some really interesting and unique concepts to it. And like Buzz's whole team is really neat. You have Nicole Sullivan, aka Shigo from Kim Possible, as Mira, one of Buzz's companions.
Well,
and of course, we have Zurg, who is absolutely amazing. Like the Zurg from the movie is hilarious. No, Buzz, I am your father. No, like that is hilarious. But Zurg from the Buzz Lightyear Star Command cartoon is the best part of the show. And the thing that is really crazy.
I have to disagree with you there. There's one you're forgetting. Nosferatu. The fucking
yes, that was a good one. I forgot about that. Yep. Thank you for reminding me.
I did not.
Fucking vampire robot.
With
that guy had the same energy as Starscream, but scarier.
Definitely.
I need to see this. I need to see the rest of the show, honestly.
Oh, it's really good.
Unfortunately, like you said, it's not on Disney Plus, but you can find it online, hint, some places. But Zurg on this show is actually voiced by Wayne Knight, who was Al in Al's Toy Barn and Nedry on Jurassic Park. I never in a billion years would have guessed that is him. That is so out of his range how he plays Emperor Zurg in this cartoon, and he is hilarious. There are so many great lines of dialogue. Like, for example, Buzz Lightyear bursts in, "What have you done with those innocent politicians, Zurg? Innocent politicians, let's not be foolish, Lightyear." Exactly. It really, really is so hilarious in that. Like, Zurg is a better Darth Vader sequel than Kylo Ren ever could be. They should have just made the new Star Wars. They should have just put Emperor Zurg in it. That would have made it 20 times better if they just had a giant Emperor Zurg.
Oh, that would be amazing. He would probably get crushed like a tin can, but I'd see
that would have been amazing.
I'd see
a
that.
life-size Emperor Zurg.
Yeah,
but no, Buzz Lightyear Star Command was a really, really great show. John Lasseter and the other people in Pixar did not like it because it apparently did not fit what they thought it was, and that's why they made that awful piece of garbage movie Lightyear. That let's put it this way. I could see why a kid would like Buzz Lightyear Star Command as a cartoon in universe and buy toys of it and bed sheets and stuff. I could not see why any kid, especially in the mid 90s, would watch a movie like Lightyear and be like, that's going to be my life now. You know?
And the movie even starts with a message that, oh, this is the movie that Andy saw and made him fall in love with Buzz Lightyear.
I mean, I can see.
No.
Okay, devil's advocate here. There were a lot of movies like Lightyear in the 90s, more or less, barring some modern touches here.
No,
that's a
but let's just say there weren't a lot of kids buying stuff like, for example, Stargate merchandise. There wasn't like a huge like Stargate animated series or stuff like that. You get what I'm saying?
I can see that, yeah, but otherwise, but barring that, I didn't hate the movie. Yeah, it's definitely lost its touch a few months later, but I enjoyed it. There were a few clever things in there that I really want to see more of for the most part. But yeah, to say this is better than Buzz Lightyear of Star Command is honestly kind of being an overstatement.
Yeah, no. Like I say, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command is my pick, just because it really has such a great sense of humor, and it really is like the perfect thing to fit into the Toy Story universe. Like, this is, in my opinion, this is where Buzz Lightyear came from. He is a toy based on this cartoon show. And without it, it doesn't really, again, fit for me. But again, even discounting all that, it is a hilarious show. It is a well-made show. It has great concepts, great villains, like really some of the most creative stuff you'll see, really good story. And of course, since it's Disney, of course, mid-90s, early 2000s Disney. It's great TV animation.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it is a fantastic show. The fact that it is not on Disney Plus right now is a crime, and it should be rectified right as instantly. But that's definitely going to be my choice and my favorite movie-based cartoon. It's going to be Buzz Lightyear of Star Command.
Yep.
Angron, what do you have to say was your favorite cartoon based on a movie?
That is a tough one, I'll be honest. But I do have an answer. It would hands down have to be Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Like,
yes,
there's the Tartakovsky one, which I absolutely stand by as well. But something about the Clone Wars is more fascinating with me. Like, this is not only based on the original trilogy of movies, but this is also based on the Clone Wars pilot movie that released before the show started proper. And honestly, that honestly double qualifies it, hands down. You got old characters like Anakin, Obi-Wan, Jar Jar. I don't care. I don't care who hates him. I personally still like him.
Same. Hate's overrated for him.
Yeah, hate's absolutely overrated. We got Mace Windu. We got a bunch of old characters paired with a bunch of new ones that absolutely were a fresh take on the freaking series. We got Asajj Ventress, who actually debuted in the Tartakovsky one, which absolutely rocked. We got Ahsoka Tano, an immediate fan favorite for very good reasons. She goes through a very solid arc. We got Captain Rex, hands down one of my favorite clone troopers, if not for 5 or 6 others that I'll get to in a second. You got the Bad Batch, which holy crap, are easily my favorite clone units, barring none. We got there are a bunch of new characters in this.
Let's not forget the greatest characters of all.
Oh boy.
The Roger droids.
Oh yes. This absolutely added character to not just the clones, dare I say. We got Echo, we got Fives, we got frickin' Heavy. There's just so much. We got Waxar and Boyle as well. Just like, good lord, they did not need to go the extra mile, especially with the droids. Like, for crying out loud, these I know that the droids in the original trilogy had some character, But good lord, Matthew Woods absolutely sells the droids in these. He also sells it as Yoda, which
definitely.
hands
They got some
down.
great episodes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
You're missing someone.
Do you ever see the I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here. You ever see the Star Wars droid cartoon from the 80s? It's pretty decent.
I did not see that one. I did not know that was a thing. But yeah, what's also interesting about this show is that it first came out on Cartoon Network before Disney eventually was like, "Oh, hey, what do we got here?" and decided to step in and make it hands down amazing as well. Like seriously. That final season absolutely was worth the watch, hands down.
This
But
is also
yeah.
the series that Ahsoka Tano comes from.
Yeah, I know. I said that.
My bad. Sorry.
All good. All good.
It's all good.
But yes, this absolutely slapped. And it would spawn freaking spin-offs as well. We got Tales of the Jedi. We got Star Wars Rebels, the later Resistance, which is the lesser of the three. And then we get then we got Bad Batch, which ended as of this episode.
Watch that.
And later we get Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. Sorry, but yeah, it's like to say this has had an impact is an understatement, hands down. Like I don't think there's ever really going to be anything like Clone Wars, in my honest opinion. I mean, other than stuff that's basically just like Clone Wars. But yeah, this right here is proof why the original trilogy, while not perfect, absolutely is something I will stand by, hands down. But yeah, that's my choice.
Oh, definitely. That is a great choice right there. Like I say, I feel like, again, the Clone Wars easily, like I say, I gotta admit, the prequel hate, I never understood. I always liked the prequels. Maybe not as much as the original trilogy, but they always were good movies to me. But the Clone Wars easily is some of the best stuff I think Star Wars as a whole ever did, because it is so well done. It really, really is a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man,
that's a great choice right there. Yep.
Yep.
So, Math, what would you have to say is your favorite cartoon that was based on a movie?
I could cheat and say Gargoyles again because the made for VHS pilot movie, ha ha ha. But no, I'll use a serious answer.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
For me, being a '90s guy, I'm actually going to break out of that wheelhouse and use a 2010 series.
Okay.
Tangled, the series, or Rapunzel's Tangled Adventures, whichever title you prefer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It actually did something that you almost never see with a movie to series, especially if it's already an animated movie.
Yeah.
It actually did a completely different art style, kept the idea of the series, and continued it forward.
Well, technically it's a midquel, so calling it a proper sequel would kind of be a little inaccurate.
Is because they did the sequel shorts. This takes place just before those, but this is
I know
to the movie proper.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I get it.
Yeah, technically it's a sequel. Technically it's a midquel. Potato. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
A really great art direction with it. It very much looks like a story book, like those old 80s, 90s kind of storybooks.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like. Really great story in general with it.
Oh yeah.
Surprisingly, it's a musical, like the movie. You don't see that very often, and it's really, really good too.
Oh hell yeah! Characters like
They
Cassandra and Lance absolutely prove that point. Also, it's got a werewolf in it.
Only characters that are really well fleshed out. Just everything about it is so much better than it has any right to be.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, and the lore that's added to it absolutely expands Corona beyond just a kingdom based off of Spain, or it's man.
Yeah, no, I understand. But yeah, it definitely is. That's a great choice right there, especially because, again, Disney used to do that all the time. Like, if a show had any sort of successful animated to it. Like if any movie, even the ones that weren't that successful, they at least had like pilots for them, which is where half the Disney direct-to-video movies came from. They're actually pilots or failed series. But yeah, they did that so often and for such a long time, and then they just stopped. It's really, really weird. I guess the closest thing to it now would be the Zootopia miniseries, which is a lot of fun. I highly recommend
Utopia
that.
Plus.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend that. But yeah, it definitely is a that's a great choice right there because again, it expanded on the show's lore while also be doing its own thing, and the art style is beautiful. Absolutely is, you know.
Yeah, it's on par with the movie actually, so that's surprising.
That too.
Yep.
Wait, speaking of Zootopia, they had just announced that they're coming out with a second one.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, they're putting out the second one. It's gonna be pretty good. Yep.
Yep.
Definitely gonna be looking forward to that when that comes out. But that's a really good choice right there. So,
Yeah,
there's a lizard
Yeah,
in there.
please.
Yep, that'd be really, really cool to see. So,
Furry artists are gonna riot when they see Judy again.
and Gazelle, let's not forget her too. Hopefully.
Mhm.
Yep. So, Shark, what would you have to say is your favorite TV show or rather cartoon that was based on a movie?
I remember watching a lot of the Disney shows in Disney Channel, and I think the one I liked the most was the Emperor's New School. The
Oh,
one,
wow.
yeah, it
Oh,
was
that's
surprising to
neat.
know that Emperor's New Groove got a show of all Disney movies at the time, but it was really funny. It's like just like the movie. It was really the jokes are great. The episode structures work, and what's surprising about it is that normally when a show makes reference to the memes or the parts that the people really like, it usually falls flat. When no, they really make it work here. Like they do reuse some jokes from the movie, but they give them twists. Like the pull the lever crunk is one that they use almost in every episode, but they give it a twist every time something different happens to Isma, for example.
It's like Phineas and Ferb, except Emperor's New Groove.
Pretty
Basically.
much, yeah. Edit.
Like tired cliches, except they are far more interesting this time around.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, like sometimes even the SpongeBob, like they have an episode based on the my leg joke, and it doesn't really
Yeah.
land. But Emperor's New
Yeah.
Groove actually reuses jokes a lot they use in the movie, but every single one hits. They always given a great twist that makes it different from the other and make it hilarious.
Oh,
Yeah, the writers
yeah,
seem
yeah.
to understand what made the movie work and follow that same comedic formula.
Yep.
I definitely can see that.
Every time a character fell off a high place, there's someone there. For the last time, we didn't order this soft or bouncy thing. They changed that joke too.
Yeah.
Yep. For last time, we didn't order this stick bundles old dry thingy.
Yeah, it's just exactly. But yeah, like you
Jojo
said,
did better.
it really, I think, like I said, I don't really remember seeing it, but from what it sounds like, it definitely sounds like it was a show that was made out of love for the movie rather than just as like a tie-in.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, definitely a good choice right there. So, Jordan, what would you have to say is your favorite movie or rather cartoon that was based on a movie?
That is very, very hard to be honest. I would hardly have to say it has to be The Mask, the cartoon series. I've seen the movie. I hate number 2. It's a love and hate between the second one, but the first one of the cartoon series, you just love how it literally remembers like how it connects to the cartoon and the movie. They connect, like they totally. Oh, but Stanley threw the mask into the ocean, and we never saw it again. Lies. We see that Milo drags the thing back, and Stanley kept the dang thing. And now here we are in the cartoon world. He's been using it for good / mistakes.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to keep with the cartoon of The Mask because it makes sense. They kept it, and I can't figure any other cartoon series that goes with the movies because I have hard times like expecting people to make good movies and from cartoons or video games to be like, okay, I want you to get the right details. Lo and behold, we had that one bad Mario movie, which we don't talk about, but it's like that.
Yeah, it checks out.
Definitely,
Same with the Lion King.
does.
We don't talk about that either, but they don't keep the same details. I am picky with my stuff. If they don't get my ordeal of what I want in the movie, they're not getting any of my love. I'm like, you screwed this movie up.
You
How
mean
could
Timon
screw
and
this
Pumbaa?
movie up?
Wait, you mean Timon and Pumbaa?
No, Timon and Pumbaa, which I like, that was good. But I mean, like the live action movie of the Lion
Oh,
King, when they
right.
don't get the
Yeah,
details of.
no. Or like the
Alright, just
upcoming
wanted to be
Mufasa
sure.
movie that, that's all we need to say.
Yeah,
This is
that's pretty much it. If you don't have the details of how the characters are in the movie, you're not getting any of my support.
You're
Like,
not getting any love from me.
Not
exactly.
at all.
Yep.
That definitely.
That's pretty much it.
That's a good choice. So, Evie, what would you have to say is your favorite movie that was turned into a cartoon?
Most of these were before my time.
Oh, dang.
The only ones I really remember watching are Jimmy Neutron and Back of the Barnyard. Even
That's
then, not enough.
true.
Even then, not enough to form an opinion on them.
Oh,
That's fair. That's
They
fair. I can
count.
see
definitely
that.
count.
That's
Yeah,
a
Jimmy
good choice
Neutron
right there.
absolutely counts.
Yeah.
But in reverse.
Yeah. No, I definitely could see that, especially because again, it feels like the spinoff is more well remembered than the TV series, which also happened to another thing done by them, of course, Jimmy Neutron, which also could technically count. Come to think of it,
Yeah, Jimmy
yeah, right. 'Cause
Neutron
Jimmy Neutron
and
was the movie and then the show, right? So
right.
that's another good choice right there because Jimmy Neutron was a hilarious show. But yeah, back to the Barnyard again. I'm really glad it's getting a lot of love because that was a show where they just said, you know what, screw it, let's throw up everything against the wall and see what sticks. And
Because
Yeah.
Have it be
it's being
cows,
meme at this
because of
point.
course.
yeah,
Yeah. Just have it be cows. Just do all the freaking cow things you can while also having a bunch of other stuff. And throwing Weird Al Yankovic in one episode.
yep.
Oh, God.
Legend, absolute legend right there.
I'm still reeling about the fact that they actually faced off against comedic legend Weird Al Yankovic.
Yep. We are really glad that they put him in there. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Man.
Yep.
Grammys!
Hmm.
Grammy shuriken. Oh my gosh, that's a concept.
Oh God, what an absolute legend right there.
Yep.
Yep. Definitely. So yeah, that's a good choice right there. And I would be remiss if we did not ask our special guest of this episode, Python. What is your favorite movie turned cartoon?
It's between two choices, but like, shit. When it comes to Disney,
It
I
doesn't have to be Disney; it could be anything.
Yeah.
okay. The second one is not Disney, but I'll go with the Disney one first. So the
Right.
Disney one, I love the Jungle Book, and I still love it today. So
Oh.
their fucking, I guess, prequel series, Jungle Cubs, was like a major hit for me.
Huh.
It's like when Bagheera, Baloo, Kam, and Shere Khan are like younger or something before everything turned to shit for them.
I can see why. If you were of a certain age, that was effectively your Muppet Babies or Looney Tune babies.
Yeah,
Huh, I
Baby
can kinda
Looney
see
Well,
that.
I'm not even
that sort of thing.
I'm not even a '90s kid. I was born in the 2000s, but like, I just saw that on YouTube one day and I was like, "Ooh, that looks cool."
Nice.
I definitely can see that. You know,
That makes
a
sense,
lot.
yeah.
You know, that. And what's the other one?
The Land Before Time series.
Nice. Yeah,
Nice.
that one I feel counts a little more than the one that you meant one that you mentioned, I feel. But both are pretty interesting picks, like especially Land Before Time.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good pick. And we're going to be talking about the Land Before Time cartoon sometime in the distant future. So definitely
Keep an eye
stay
out
tuned
for that.
Yep, that's for sure. So yep, that's a very good pick. So now we're going to go to the patent pending Dragoness Scale, where we rank, of course, the Dragonesses in 1 to 10. Now, Dragon Lady from the Mask is going to be very interesting because she's a really good character, great design. They gave her a lot to do. You know, they basically kept her in her Dragoness form, They had very interesting concepts of her being able to turn from a dragoness to human, in the blink of an eye. The bottom heaviness is always a good plus, and
Yep.
the fact that she can speak in her dragoness form is pretty good. But I don't know if I could give her a 10 out of 10. I really, really want to. Believe me. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, she's part of the ensemble, and she got a lot to do, actually more than her other two companions. So, I don't know. I'm just really trying to consider myself giving her a 10 out of 10, and I don't know. There's something just blocking me from doing it.
Yeah.
It's just maybe if she was in her dragoness form a little bit more rather than the human form, I would probably bump it up to 10 out of 10. But I'm gonna give her a 9 out of 10, really like a 9.9 out of 10, really, because it is just so close. It's just something. I don't know what is holding it back for me, but that's gonna be my pick. Again, it's hard to explain, but I just don't know. It's one of those things. But yeah, 9 out of 10, which is still a very, very high score. And she's a great character, great voice, great design, good personality, all that stuff. But yeah, I cannot, in good point, give her a perfect score out of a 10 out of 10. But 9 out of 10 is still a very good one.
Yep.
And Ron, what would you give her?
Also gonna do a 9 out of 10. She's definitely unique as a villain, and honestly, I kind of want to see more of that. Like she's not perfect. She doesn't have that much screen time, but honestly, I don't care. The Mask really did much with her, despite the limitations, and that is ultimately enough to give her a high ranking. So no notes other than more screen time, and 9 out of 10.
That's a good thing right there. So, Math, what would you have to give her?
Gonna keep that rolling with a 9.
Woo-choo!
I think I can. I might be able to say what your issue is, because I think that yours and mine are going to be a similar issue. Love her design. It's very unique. I've never seen I've seen characters that look like her, but not quite this combination of designs. But the dragon's form is absolutely unique, and really appreciated how much detail they put into it.
Absolutely.
She came off as the leader of the group, which that's a bit surprising.
Yeah.
Easily the smartest of those three idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had very good comedic moments for as serious as she was.
Yeah.
The issue I had, and I think that this might be yours as well, Lud, is that because she's a parody of comic book villains, she, while being as unique as she was, felt weirdly generic.
I can see why.
And that was my issue, is that for as much as I was like, oh hey, I like the idea of this character, I like the take of this character, I like the originality put into her, a lot of what she said and did felt so generic, which was the point of it, but I think they went a little bit too hard into that.
That is a perfect way to put it right there. That is way better than I ever could have put it. She feels, like I say, generic in a way, which isn't a bad thing, especially for what they were trying to do. They were trying to base her on like the old Silver Age comic book villains, but like you said, they might have done too good of a job with it.
Yeah, I can see that. And I honestly like that charm, honestly. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely something that I can get into.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Yep. That definitely is a good choice right there. So let's go with Jordan. What would you give her?
I'm going on the 9 train. Doot, doot.
Okay. Sure. Wow. Nice. Any particular reason or
I mean, she's a badass. She's a only female with 2 guys who think, oh, let's try and, take out the Mask with so many other ways. She's like, I'm gonna go full dragon mode and literally burn him and just. It's a girl thing. It's a girl thing. You gotta show who's empowered, even though she kept getting hit on by the Mask so many times. I mean, I don't blame her. Her look is fantastic, I think the only thing is that gets me is that she can't talk in her dragon form, which you can kind of see her mouth is not moving. But I think telepathy, she's trying to talk. She's talking to whoever is around her.
I can see that.
That's pretty much it.
Nope, it's all good. It's all good. So Evie, what do you have to give her?
And maybe a 5.
Okay. Any particular reason for that?
It's just my go-to default.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And also, now for our guest, Python, what would you give Dragon Lady from the Mask?
Never seen the show, so
All right, so we'll just have me down as N/A in that case. That's all right.
I mean, we got the image right here, so
Yeah. Show them right. Yeah.
okay. Let's see. Huh. Not what I was expecting her to look like.
yeah.
It's hard to
I
describe.
mean, she looks like a baddie, but not a baddie.
Like
5?
a goody baddie.
I'll say a 5.
I definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good choice. And I cannot believe I forgot this. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry for this. I almost forgot the shark. I am so sorry for that. I really gotta apologize right there. Should.
It's fine.
Well,
Well, I'm going
sorry.
to recover the 9 out of 10 train because.
All right, so
You're
yeah,
gonna
that's
give
pretty
her-
good then. And on 9
Yeah,
out of
because for a one-shot character, she does a lot. Like you say, like they say, she's the leader of the group. She's the one that does the most. She talking as a dragon is always a plus. And the whole that she can shapeshift individual parts of her body is also a great plus. And of course, bottom heavy. If only the mask had gotten her to dance Cuban Pete as a dragon.
Oh, that would have been perfection. That would have been great.
The only thing that kind of lowers down is that what I generally like her design, at the same time, I think it has a lot of detail. It's overly detail-like. She has a lot like the hair, the lines, several wrinkles. The chest
I
and the
can see
belly
that.
have different colors, so it might be a little too overwhelming when it comes to the details and the colors, but not so much to
definitely
lower it that much. So I'll stick with a 9 out of 10 for her.
All right, I definitely can see that. That is very good. Again, sorry for almost leaving you out. It definitely was not intentional.
Okay, you remember it. That's the important.
Yeah, that's
you
good.
do.
Yep. So that'll be it for this week. If you have any questions or if you want to suggest other superheroes that the mask could have turned into, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter on twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time, we'll be continuing something we talked about last week, as we'll be discussing the 1996 Blazing Dragons episode, The Age of Retention. This is an episode from season 2 where they kind of retooled the show, and it'll be interesting seeing it and talking about the difference of the character designs, the writing, and basically to see if the season 2 version of Princess Flame will be as good as season 1. I hopefully think she is, but we'll have to just wait and see for that. But that'll be it for this week. And until then, thank you guys so much for listening, and take care.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.
Smoking.
Somebody stop me.
Stop me.
And we are being
Yeah,
stopped
that's a
right
trend.
now.
Yep. Later.
See you next week. Adios.